Okay, let us get into memory control groups. That is the last lecture within the module of memory. All right, so memory controller, we worked on the CPU control group, CPU set control group, so we are very familiar with how control groups work. Similarly, we have the memory controller, which is part of the memory control group. The idea behind the control groups is you can put a bunch of processes together and put some upper bounds on what these processes can utilize. The memory controller is going to do the same thing. In addition, you get some statistics out which have detailed level accounting for what is going on in that set of processes. So we get better accounting for anonymous RSS, page cache. In fact, the kernel meminfo, the details that we get at the kernel level utilization, as well as the VM level utilization, cache, anonymous, resident, memory, all of that we can get through this controller. Then in addition to that, when the memory of the process will go over certain limits that you define in C groups, you can actually take action and kill that process or a process within that C group to alleviate the memory situation. This is also because LRU principles are now embodied within the control group, so the kernel is able to make decisions on, okay, I did what I needed to do to reclaim memory, and now I can kill a process within this control group. So you're able to take actions that you would have generally taken at a system level now in a C group level. So memory controller, here are some control settings and some accounting files that you can use. Memory.limit in bytes is very useful. That's what I will have an example for. You can put an upper bound on this memory utilized by control group. This helps make sure that processes within the control group will stay within what is assigned to them. Then you can have an OOM control disablement here. If you do not want the out of memory controller to kick in, you could disable that here. Swappiness setting, which is the aggressiveness with which the kernel is going to try to swap your pages, can be controlled in the control group, and you could set it to 0 to pretty much disable swap of pages by the kernel for processes in this control group. You can also define if you want to use hierarchy, which means hierarchical accounting will kick in. Control groups and their children, they're all bound by the limits of the parents as well. On the accounting side, you can definitely get the actual usage in bytes happening right now, kernel usage in bytes. Memory.stat provides you a lot of detailed level accounting information that you could get for the overall system. Now you can get for the C group processes as well. And over time, if you want to reset your statistics, you can just call memory.forceEmpty, and that'll reset the statistics. So for this test, I have done a couple of shell scripts, one with no memory limit. The right one is with a memory limit. And I use the tool stress, which helps run a certain number of workers and put a certain load on the system. And I am running stress with --VM1, which means one virtual memory load or worker load to be generated, and the load that will be generated by this worker is 10 meg of memory and a timeout of 10 seconds, so it runs for 10 seconds and times out. On the left run, I did not put any memory limits. You could see that the max usage in the limits that I have is over 10 megs, and you can read the number 110469112. That's what the memory utilization reached max during this process. And the RSS also is showing at close to that level, which is the resident size of the memory. This process runs for 10 seconds, but what I do is at about 5 seconds time, I snapped and get the usage numbers. On the right side, I have the same process trying to get 10 megabytes of memory, but I also put a memory limit there of 10 megabytes. And what that does is that it needs more than that, because there is some other memory in the process that it needs beyond 10. So it starts failing, which means that the memory allocation does not happen. It does not get the memory that it needs, and the child is failing over there because the memory control group now kicks in and does not give it the memory that it is asking for. Here's an example of how you can actually use memory limits effectively. That is also the final topic I wanted to cover in memory management here. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it. Memory has been a complex topic to cover. There are many situations about memory that help optimize performance, between how the CPU hardware manages memory, how the kernel manages, optimizations, process level, and certain controls you have available, the knobs to tune for your own processes through memory control groups. Okay, so the next module will be on I/O. Thank you. Bye.